Hi there, welcome back to 3X Point. This is Dari. In this video, we're going to be looking at logical arithmetic operators. What does that actually mean? Well, we'll find out. Let's have a look. So, I bring up my slide, and it's what you're looking at on your screen right now. So, we have logical arithmetic operators in SQL, and these are the regular arithmetic operators that you know from addition to subtraction to multiplication and division and modulo. Well, with modulo might sound a little bit strange to some of you, but for people who are actually from a programming background would already understand what we mean by modulo. I would actually like to explain this with a demonstration, but I wouldn't have to go into details of all of these. I believe everyone already understand addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But for modulo, it's just to say the remainder of a division. So if we do 10 divided by 3, for example, the answer will be something like 3 remainder 1, right? So with modulo, we're not concerned about the 3 remainder. This will be the answer. So if you do 10 divided by 3, you get 3 with a remainder. But if you do modulo, if you do 10 modulo 3, then the answer will be this. Right, so that's what we mean by modulo, and this come handy in some operations that you might want to do with your analytics, but I'll just like to demonstrate this for you and see how it's been implemented in SQL Server. So let's bring up our management studio, and as you can see, I've written down a number of them already. So what you can do is, if you simply do a select 1 plus 5 and execute, you just get the answer, which is 6. If you do a select of 2 multiplied by 2, you get the number. Similarly, if you do a 6 divided by 2, you get your answer. And if you do a select 10 modulo 3, you can see that you get the answer right there. So you can do any kind of operation with arithmetic with SQL Server. And let's have a little look at a real world example of where you would see it in action. So let's say we have this data from this table, which we have some ID, and then we have some product, and we have the unit that's been sold, we have the cost and the actual sale, and the name of the table is sales. So if you wanted to calculate how much profit you make on each of these laptops. So for example, it cost 500 to make it, and it was sold for 700, right? um, don't regard any currency right now, so we're just trying to demonstrate this. So if you wanted to calculate the profit per unit, right? So you would say select the product, select the cost, select the sales if that's you're interested in all that, and this is the actual calculation you're looking for. As you can see, this profit per unit is not on this table, so we're going to derive a new column from this table by doing a calculation, and that column, you know, would normally be called a calculated field, because it's a field that's been derived as a result of some calculation. So if I now say sales minus cost and execute this, you would see that we now have a derived column that was not part of the table before. And if you notice, unit is no longer part of the select list because I didn't select unit, so it took unit away, because what I'm just interested in is to calculate how much profit is made if any of these items are being sold. So for laptop, we have 700 in terms of sales, we have 500 in terms of cost, and if you subtract 700 from 500, you have 200, and that's what SQL Server has done for us here. So the same thing goes for all the tables. So you can imagine if you have 100 million records in this table, and you just put the calculation here and execute it, it would dynamically just do the calculation and return all the data for you with no error. Similarly, we've done some logical operators before in our previous video, whereby we can use something like greater than, less than in the where clause. So if we wanted to have a look at what product will give us profit where it is greater than 100, we can do the same thing with the where clause and say select product cost sales from sales where sales minus cost is greater than 100. So you can see we have 4 rows back here, and let's see the one that will give us profit higher than 100. So you see laptop and PC have sales that are greater than 100. Let's have a look if it was less than 100 and see which ones. So we only have one product that will give us profit less than 100, which is the battery. Right. So you can see that the third column is not returned. The calculated field is not returned because we didn't select it. We didn't bring it back in the select list. But let's assume that we now want it. We can just copy this and just put it right here and do that. So you can see that the profit that we'll get from here is 50, and it meets the condition that says where sales minus cost is less than 100. So you can see how we can use arithmetic operator and logical operator in in our select statements, and we can return back any kind of data that we want depending on the calculation we're doing. Now there's something I also want to okay, before we go into that, let's have a look at multiplication. And let's say we want to calculate the gross profit now. This time around, we will be taking into consideration the units sold per product. So we now say select product cost unit sales, and now we're saying gross profit equals sales minus cost multiplied by unit. Obviously, you know that if you get your unit profit per unit and you multiply it by the units sold, you can get the gross profit on that particular product. So you can do something like this, and as you can see, we have 3 units sold here, and we have a gross profit of 600 on this one. Let's also do something. Let's actually bring the profit per unit back as well. So we could just put that here and put a comma after it and select everything. So you can see all these wonderful things that we can do within our SQL. So we have product 500 cost, we sold 3. We have a sales of 700, that's the money we got. Sorry, what's that? So so the 700 is the amount sold for each one. So for each product that we sell, we make 200 on top of it. Now the gross profit is, because we sold 3, the gross profit is now 600, right? And the same thing goes for everything on the table. So if you look at PC, it cost 350, and the units sold is 4. That means we sold 4 in total. This column should have been called units sold, but you can understand what we're trying to do here. And the sale that was made on this one is 500, meaning we made 500 in sales per the one that was sold. So let's say, for example, we sold 350. It cost 350, and then 500 was sold. Okay, so let's quickly no. Okay, so let me remove this. Okay, so let's go into the multiplication part of it. So we said we'll select product, select cost, unit, sales, and then we want to calculate the gross profit. And the gross profit will be our profits per unit, which is sales minus cost, multiplied by the unit, which is the units sold. So let's have a look at what this returns for us. You can see here that we have the laptop, which cost 500, and the total units sold is 3. This column should have been called total units sold, but you can understand what we're trying to do here, which is the total units sold is 3 and 700, and the gross profit is now 600, meaning if we made 200, actually let's bring back the profits per unit here so that we can see everything in detail. So profit per unit, so how much profit did we make for selling just one? We made 200. So the gross profit is now 600, because if we multiply 200 by 3, we get 600. So that's how this comes about. So you can see that we can do, any mathematical operation that you think of, you can write your SQL to bring back such data. Moving on, I would like to point something out here. This query is actually the same thing as we already have here. Actually, let me take this away. You can see that this is what we just selected. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. And now I want to put a where clause and say where I'll bring gross profit, where gross profit is less than 500. Okay, I want you to pause this video and tell me, do you think we will get data back from this? Because now we want to see where gross profit, meaning on this table, where gross profit is less than 500. This is the gross profit. Do you think we're going to get data back? So pause the video before running this query and just guess the answer. Okay, so now I assume that you have paused the video, and now we're going to run this query. Boom. You see, it says invalid column name gross profit, even though we have gross profit here. And the reason is just because gross profit is not part of the definition of this table. Gross profit is just a calculated field, right? So if you actually want to get the gross profit, all you need to do is, if you want to filter by the gross profit, you have to take the actual calculation itself and put it here. You see, now you can get the data you're looking for, which is battery has a gross profit which is less than 500, and it's the only data that's been returned back to us, right? So that's the essence of this. All right, so what does this bring? Okay, we've actually had a look at this before. So there's something else I want to point out to us. Okay, let's go back to this. I want to quickly point this out so that you can see another way of doing it. So you can see that to get the profit per unit, we said profit per unit equals sales minus cost. Alternatively, you can actually do something like this. So I've cut that away, and if I did this, you can see that we're still having the same data, but this time around it doesn't have a column name. Now this is another place where alias can come to play. So if I did this and said sales minus cost as profit per unit, and you see we get the same thing back. So it doesn't really matter which one you choose to use, it would still bring back the same data. So let me bring this here, so you can see it's the same query but different way of returning the data. So here we say profit per unit equals this, and here we say sales minus cost as profit per unit. And if I selected both together, you can see that it's returning back to us the same data. So I just wanted to quickly point that out so that if you see it anywhere, you won't be confused. You'll be sure that you know what you're doing. All right, so that's pretty much everything you need to know about arithmetic operators. So I'll see you in the next movie. See you, bye.